Hi, my name is Bryn, and today I'm going to do my hobby how-to on archery. So I'm actually on an archery team at my high school, Heartland High School, but I've always done it since I was a kid before I really got into it as a sport. So of course, firstly, we have our bow. This is the bow we use for my team. This is called a Genesis bow. It has no sights. It is the simplest bow you can get for all levels. Elementary, middle school, and high school use this bow just out of fairness. So I have obviously a blue bow here, and my strings, I actually did them. I have blue and purple strings, purple being my favorite color. So a few things I'm going to show you today are how to properly hold a bow, how to properly put an arrow on the bow, and then I'm going to do a few shots for you and show you at the end of my target. Due to, again, the rules of my team, there are a 10-meter and a 15-meter shot. In my basement, which I'm currently in right now, I have a target all the way down there, which is about 14.5 meters. It's not perfect, but it's still really close for when I practice at home before tryouts or even between tournaments. So obviously, firstly, we have the bow. First thing I want to show you is how to hold the bow. This being the spot your hand is. Also, I am a right-hand bow shooter. I'm right-hand, so if you are left-hand, it's going to be a little bit different. Before we get into this as well, please make sure you have a parent or a guardian present when you're doing this. Especially if you're new to this kind of thing, it is very dangerous and can hurt someone. Even if the arrows are dull, they still hurt. Okay, back to it. So firstly, this is where you place your hand. When placing your hand, you want to take the palm of your hand. What you want to do is you see these lines on your hand, placing your hand very exactly against this rest here. So if this was the black part of my bow, which I just showed you, I'm resting my hand against here just like that. The trick to it is when placing your hand, like I just said, you are resting your whole hand on it. I am not gripping the bow at all. I am letting it rest on my palm. That is a big thing with this and getting a really nice clean shot. It's just resting it right on this arch right here and right on this part right here. Having that nice rest is very nice. Gripping it like this, tend to, when you release, letting go of the string, your arm may lock in, making your arrow go in a different direction. That is why having a loose grip is a lot better for shooting. Because as you just saw, when you have a loose grip, it falls like this right onto your shoulder. A lot of archers, including me, tend to use this. This is called a finger sling. Placing on your finger where you're going to hold your bow is how to keep it in a good position where you feel like you're still holding onto it. It has two adjusting here, so I'm going to place it on my thumb, and I'd place it around. You can choose. Some people do it on their finger here, on here, or here. Never on your pinky, and of course not on your thumb again, because that's counterproductive. So, when holding my bow, I keep this off, only tightened on my thumb. Again, I tighten it as much as I can. Taking it, putting it around the bow, like we said, relaxed as possible. I'm wrapping this around to my forefinger here, and tightening it as much as I can. This keeping it in a more protective position, seeing it's not going to fall back on my shoulder, but I can still relax my hand to have a good shot. A next part that archers most commonly have is when pulling back your bow. Now, what I'm going to show you is something that there's another rule to this you really need to know. When pulling back your bow, unless there is an arrow in it, you do not release it. Doing as I just did here, calmly just letting the force come out. So, taking my right, this is my left hand here, so I hold, I forgot to mention this earlier, when you're a right-handed person, you take your string and you pull back with your right hand, being a right-hand shooter. So my left hand is gripping the bow. That's why earlier it may have looked a little odd when I was holding my bow, because I'm not used to it like that. Left hand grips only, fingers holding below. When holding back your arrow straight, this white part is your best friend. right below it, 3-finger grip. Right on this, a lot of archery goes with your finger lines. Like I said before, the palm of your hand, that line, and of course, the line of your knuckles and the very tips of your fingers. Lining up with the bow and pulling back. When doing this, like I said, 3 fingers below this white mark, and the tip of the arrow, which I'll show you next, will lock in right here. Now, let's move on to arm guards. I need these. As an archer, from the very beginning, I always hit my arm because I used to longbow. I have a longbow sitting up there, but because of Heartland Archery rules, I have to shoot with this bow now, which is called a compound bow. I cannot shoot with that anymore. So this is an arm guard. When pulling back your string, as shown here, this would be my string. My arm is flat here. Sometimes when releasing the string, it will hit your arm right here. I know other archers who have gotten blisters and really terrible pains from this. So, putting this on, of course, depending on where you commonly hit, mine is normally about my elbow region. I keep this on when I have a short sleeve shirt on, so when releasing the arrow, no pain, slides through very nicely. So that's another thing I use. Going back to your drawstring hand, that's what this is called. When you're pulling back, it's called your drawstring hand. I have a glove. Now, this is actually a golfer's glove. We don't have specific archery gloves. And this is used, as you can tell, I used it this whole season, so where I pull back my strings, it is very worn out. Putting this on, I use this to grip onto my bow, having it, of course, here, and this just helps with soreness on your fingers because, like I said before, I've seen archers that have blisters on this part and on the tips of their finger, many calluses as well. So to prevent this, you have a glove. Okay, now that we have all of the pieces and parts down, we're moving on to arrows. Now, the trick with arrows is having multiple sets. This set, my turquoise, yellow, and purple set, I use this when I'm going to tournaments. But my blue, yellow, and black set here is what I use at practices at school. And then I have one more set, which includes pinks, yellows, and greens. This pink, purple, and white one is what I use when I'm practicing at home. The reason we have different sets is because these old pink, yellow, and green ones were ones that may be slightly bent. I've used them for a few years, and they're just not as reliable as before. Because the more you use your arrows, the more likely they are to bend slightly, have a curve in them, or even have this white part here, which is where you lock your string in, to bend or move. So, I'm going to be showing you with my tournament arrows. These are my best ones. Again, like I said, I only use them at tournaments unless they are a new pair. If I have a new pair of arrows, I tend to shoot with them a few times even when I'm not at tournaments, just so I'm comfortable with how they set. So, this white part here is where your arrow goes in, and this is called the nock. Now, as you can see, the colors are different. You have a yellow, bright yellow here, but the other two are purple. There's a reason for this. Taking your bow, this plastic part here, right above where your hand would be placed, is where you rest your arrow on. Resting my arrow, I pull it through and knock right above that white part where your fingers are, like I said before. Now you notice I put this yellow piece towards the outside. So when I'm pulling back, this yellow piece is towards me, or that way I suppose you can say, while these other pieces are towards this way. That's a special thing that you need to understand, because when looking at this arrow, you can see if it slides off the bow, these two will not hit these extra supportive strings, while this other one is able to fly through. That's why it's important to have the colors in that direction. Now, you may be wondering, there's multiple colors everywhere. It's always the odd color out. Again, bright yellow, but a bunch of blues. The odd color out is always going to go in this direction. See? Okay. Now that we have that on, we're going to move on to a few shot practices. Now again, if you don't have a target, you don't have a specific place, please be careful, just watch and focus.